But yeah, we shot it in 2012. So it's a short documentary. It's around 19 minutes.
Beautiful film.
Thank you.
Can I say this before you talk about it?
Sure.
I teared up a little bit when I watched it all the way to the end.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. A lot of people said the same thing.
Yeah.
What does that feel like when people say that to you?
Well,
especially because this seems like a little more serious.
Yeah, and I don't want to give, it's
For sure.
It's not usually what you're coming in for, you know, the comedy
it's not
and stuff
comedy
like that.
whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't want to feel like it's a spoiler at the end. It's more of a tribute. But yeah, it's a weird feeling when people tell you that. It's like, okay, well, you're welcome because I, brought this feeling from you,
But that's what you're trying to do.
I don't think the intent was that. I mean, honestly, when I'm editing it, it's I'm paying tribute to the person that
for sure.
But I'm not even thinking like, how
I'm gonna make them cry.
How are other people gonna react to it?
Yeah. It was hard to edit once it like all that afterwards had happened.
Yeah. And I mean, I could talk about it. Like I said, it's not a spoiler. So basically, we started filming this in 2012, and the way that we even came up with asking them. So basically, Souleros are record collectors, primarily from the Mexican American community, who have been collecting for years, and they have really big collections of particularly soul music, underground
oldies.
Soul music, oldies. Stuff that wasn't Motown or wasn't, it was artists that might have just recorded that one, song, and they just kind of shelved it. So they do that. They're collectors. They look for stuff like that. And I've always been like intrigued with the relationship with the Mexican Americans and soul music, which is primarily black community music, but Chicanos.
I gestured to it,
and I looked over to the appropriate table. Yeah.
Me and Marcos are gonna leave for the rest of this interview.
Please do. They're not even talking about it. You're gonna just continue. Hey, Sus, don't interrupt.
I almost looked at Phil when I said that. Yeah, but yeah, it's just a big thing, it's in our culture, we love listening to
Chicano culture.
Yeah, we love listening to oldies, man. And so I always thought that was interesting. And not only that, but you would see CDs passed around like in the neighborhood, or you go to a record store and you see these CDs with handmade art that look like prison art, that kind of art. So you're like, oh, this is interesting. Like, oh, this is an oldie CD. I thought it was like a rapper CD or something like that. And no, and it's these people that collect the records and they put out promotional CDs for like their neighborhoods to bump, while they're cruising or while they're in barbecuing or whatever.
Lowrider culture.
Yeah, so I was intrigued, and then I found out that there was a group in San Jose called the Northern Souleros who did that. They would get together, choose songs to make compilations for, and make promotional CDs. And so I met them in 2012 through a photographer named Felipe Vasquez. Shout out to Felipe. And then we started interviewing. We met him at a barbecue in San Jose, the Souleros, and we did all the interviews there. And this was again in 2012.
This is 2012.
Yeah, this is 2012 that we filmed. And then my hard drive later that year crashed. And I did not back anything up. Yeah, it was at the time where I was just transitioning into digital, media versus tapes and that stuff.
Everybody on three. Ooh.
So that got lost, and I thought it was gonna get lost like forever. Yeah. Like, okay, I lost the footage. Now I look like an asshole because I shot this and never did nothing with it. And then right when the pandemic started, I found the hard drive, and I had a new laptop, and I decided to plug it in just for shits and giggles. And sure enough, the laptop, the drive came back.
Wow.
So I dragged all my stuff out of there. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. Now I can edit this project, and it's going to be a surprise for them now because,
they thought it was gone.
They thought it was gone. So now I'm like, so I didn't tell them. I'm like, I started editing. Well, between me editing, 3 of the 5 people I interviewed passed away. Yeah, that same year within months of each other.
Wow.
So it's like, oh shit, So maybe subconsciously I did do that at the end, because I had found out what happened. I can't hear myself. I don't know. But anyways, yeah. So that and then so we scheduled a new shoot just to kind of see what they're doing now, and so there's footage of there that we just shot like a year ago. Yeah, recently. Oh wow. Yeah.
What I like about that, like the group, is because I read an article about it was an interview with the guy that directed The Exorcism. The guy that
The Exorcist?
The Exorcist. The guy that directed The Exorcist. The Exorcism. He talked about how, now that film's getting older, a lot of old films that were really good are getting lost in time forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like they're the film rots.
Yeah.
And they're not being put into into DVDs or hard drives where you can store them forever.
Yeah.
And I don't know how vinyl is, but the same thing can happen to vinyl.
Yeah. Of course, you get lost.
And we're losing, if it's not like you said, Motown classics, there's still a lot of gems in that era.
Right.
They're not getting put out, and they're going to be lost forever.
Right.
They're not getting transferred over to MP3s or.
Right.
I'm not going to lie. I Googled the songs listed on
Souleros?
soundtrack on Souleros to see if any rappers had sampled any of that stuff, any of those particular. There's a website called Who Sampled.
I love Who Sampled.
Nothing.
I love Who Sampled.
Nothing. There's the idea that there's still undiscovered jewels out there is really exciting, especially for me as an artist that likes the soul sampled sound. That's part of the fun of it, is finding something that people haven't really heard and twisting it a little bit.
One thing that I find amazing from their CDs, for the most part, if you try to Shazam,
it doesn't know it.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's starting to as stuff gets uploaded on YouTube and everything, it starts getting a little bit more have more visibility in it. But yeah, when they first came out with this stuff, you couldn't unless you saw the label. But if you heard it on the radio or something like that, you wouldn't know. Yeah.
You would have to record it on your tape. Remember? And then there's commercial breaks, and then the DJ says, "Shout out to all my workers." Really, motherfucker, you're ruining the song. And that was the only way that you could take on to that.
Back in the
song
day.
back in the days. Yeah. So that's it's almost like, what was it called? Archivists. That's what these guys are essentially, right? Like they're archivists of shit that's important in history. Because we know the Mona Lisa. That's a perfect example. There was hella other shit that was just as beautiful
around that time,
and that's the only one we have. And it kind of sucks. It's sad in a way that that's the only one we know about.
Right.
Because there's all these other shit that got destroyed.
There's all these other artists,
and art to me is just as important as historical facts and
oh yes,
because it's part of the history.
It's like, how can you understand a cultural moment or the context of where someone's from unless you get the art as well as the actions,
right?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. What people value, the ideas that they strive for can be summed up in a handful of songs or a handful of paintings, or you could get a richer gleam from that.
And also with the whole the Chicano culture that it embraces the music, the zoot-suits that came from jazz performers back in the South. Like me and you were raised by immigrant parents, right? Same here. I'm first generation.
My dad I'm second generation.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I grew up with I didn't feel connected at all to Chicano culture because my parents were straight from Mexico and it wasn't until I was a teen that I was like, oh shit, this thing, and I feel like that kind of thing is important to know about because it helps you understand where your people are in this country.
No, and I was raised half and half. When I grew up, I was
half
raised
and half the milk.
The milk, no.
Cheers.
From the waist down, I was raised African American.
Whoa.
We just say black over here.
Okay.
I've never been to Africa.
Definitely want to go though.
Yeah.
No, but I was, half the time I was in California, in the Bay, in San Jose, and then half the time.
Oh yeah, you were in Mexico.
Jalisco, yeah. So I think I got the best of both, worlds because I'm able to like the oldies but love banda music too.
Yeah.
He grew up up in Oakland. He grew up in the black part of Oakland. Yeah, exactly.
That's basically what growing up in Oakland.
Hey, hell yeah. I know, yeah. That's part of Oakland where the black people were. Okay, all right.
He grew up in East 14th. That's exactly what he described.
Yeah. So my dad grew up. So
Yeah. So for me, it was kind of the same thing, but like I didn't go back and forth, but I grew up in mostly black neighborhoods, right. And I love their music. But then when you go back, it's like, oh shit, like this is not new. Like we've been in the same hoods for all these years. So that's why the lowriders. To me, it was crazy that I like met some of these OGs from like the Mission, and they didn't really listen to like Banda Machos and shit. Right. But they were bumping like oldies, and it's like, what the fuck, man? I thought we're supposed to be on the same page. We're all raza. And then you look into it, it's a whole culture of the oldies thing, and that dude, you interviewed the guy, the artist, one of the artists in the like he sang like the oldies music. Yeah, Joe Batan. He's half black, half Filipino, but he sang a lot of soul songs in Spanish too around that time. So he was doing, he knew, talked about the raza. He knew like back then. It's like, yo, I got to do some stuff in Spanish because he's seen who's coming to the shows. Exactly. Yeah. And in the interview, and it sucks because the audio file from that, we had lost it, so I was using the camera audio. That's why it doesn't sound as well. But he said it like, if it wasn't for the Mexican American community, we wouldn't be touring still. That's crazy. Yeah. That's kind of like what we were talking about once in an episode where like jazz, the people that come to watch jazz isn't primarily black anymore. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. The people that, in some cases, you have situations where the people that perform, a lot of the people that perform a lot of these older musical forms that maybe the African American made popular aren't necessarily African American anymore in general. The performers, and it's like look at rock. Yeah, right. Especially rock. And nobody's looking like James Brown on the rock scene anymore. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, but it finds a new audience. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it finds a new audience. And then new people get inspired. I mean, even with rap, I think I think it's beautiful that you have people from multiple ethnicities taking it on. But there's like more and more, Caucasian rappers than there ever have been at once. And audience members too. And audience members for that, especially audience members. On that same note, is there any new Souleros, like newer generations of Souleros now? Because I mean, you guys should watch it, but is there younger? Well, there's younger collectors. Yeah, of course. There's always collectors coming. Even the term Solero was used mainly for this group that I was talking to, but it made the word made it around, and people were like, oh, we like the sound of that. It's very, we want to appropriate that name for us as well. Yeah. But of course, there's new collectors. But now, they kind of have it a little bit easier, because of the internet and and all that, and like the older collectors, they're, they had to put their work in to actually find these, but now that they're also on the internet, so now it's like it's like not a war, but it's like people are bidding on the same stuff. And shit, that's what I like about YouTube, because I've found so many good music on YouTube that isn't even like you said, you put it on Shazam, and it doesn't even like register. It doesn't. It's like music that someone saved by putting on YouTube, which I think that's how like eventually all this is gonna end up, unless like one of your grandpas dies and you find all his collections, and it's like, oh shit, and that's what they talked about, how that it goes up in value if it's not available, and that to me, like, I love hearing that kind of shit, because it's like something that no one else has, and even if it's not the best sounding, but it's something that's not and you didn't collect it necessarily for the profit. You just did it because you love these old records, and you're like, hey, this is now, it's like something. It's like being rewarded for your purity of heart. It's something special. How's it like, I know you wanted some awards, but how's it been, like, the people's reaction to it as a filmmaker? Not great. We've had a lot of people come up to us after the fact, and the first thing that they bring up is that usually when they play our documentary, they play it alongside other shorts as well, and after every other short, on the credits,
the credits is like huge of all the people that
Yours?
worked on it. No. Everyone else's. All the sponsorships that they got the funding for, and then for mine, it's just me and my boy Alex Vegano. Produced, shot, edited by you know. And then when I have to put down like, what was your budget for this? I'm like, $100. I don't, you know.
How much was this camera?
$100.
You think of the gas money that you spent?
Yeah.
Wow.
Hire me, people. No.
Ours was the same way when we did.
I do it for $150 now.
Yeah,
hold on.
Oh, now I got some.
Unhealthy comedian plug coming.
When we did Unhealthy Comedian, it was like the same thing. Like I'm looking at the credits, like fuck, I gotta pad this shit out because it's just me over and over and over again. So I'm like assigning different roles to different people. Location manager, Marcos, like just to pad out the credits. And then when I was going through the distribution process, you're in there somewhere. I put everybody in there because I needed to pad it out.
Corday wasn't in there.
Wait,
you weren't in the movie.
Yeah, I know what
part 2 comes to.
That movie?
You can watch it streaming now on Roku.
I have. But I want to know like.
But when I was doing the distribution process, same thing. They need to know like your budget, and I'm like, fuck. How many lunches did we buy?
Yeah.
So I just like made up a number. I was like, like $800, gas and lunches. Sounds about right. So
yeah.
No, none of that went to gym subscriptions, by the way.
No gym subscriptions, no weight loss pills, no diet supplements.
Hey.
Can you believe the Voice Party has had merch this whole time and we neglected to tell anybody? T-shirts, hoodies, bath mats, wall clocks, throw pillows, even mini skirts. We will throw our logo on absolutely anything. Click the link in the description below and pick you up some Voice Party merch today.